So Guillermo Rigondeaux defeats Joseph Agbeko with a unanimous 12-round decision. He didn't lose a round. I've heard one person say that this was a disappointing performance by Rigondeaux, that he should have stopped Agbeko. I don't know why. I don't know why people think that. Agbeko, as far as I know, has never been stopped before in his career. He's been dropped before, but he's never been stopped. So the fact that Rigondeaux didn't stop him, I don't know why people are holding that against him. Right? Agbeko is a very durable guy. So the fact he didn't stop him, so what? All right? Who the hell does Floyd Mayweather stop? Right? Floyd has beat many guys on points who have been stopped before. Right? When Floyd fought Castillo had been knocked out about twice before he'd fought Floyd. Only a year before he'd fought Floyd, this guy had already been knocked out like twice in Mexico. But Floyd couldn't stop him in 2 fights. All right? Floyd himself has been in there and been the distance with guys. For example, Zab Judah, right? He went 12 rounds with Judah. He lost the first, 3 rounds against Judah. But yet Judah had been knocked out previously by Costa Tszyu in 2 rounds. Right? So no one criticized that about Floyd, all right? So I don't know why people are criticizing Rigondeaux for taking a guy the distance. Why they feel like he should have knocked him out. That's not what Rigondeaux does all the time. Rigondeaux's a safety first guy like Floyd. And in fact, I would say Rigondeaux's a bit more ambitious than Floyd in terms of trying to knock opponents out. Rigondeaux don't have the hand trouble that Floyd has. So when Rigondeaux does have a guy in trouble, he tends to go for the kill a bit more so than Floyd does. Yeah. Floyd tends to hold back a bit. Even if he hurts a guy, he'll, follow up with 1 or 2 shots, then he'll leave it alone. Whereas Rigondeaux will really force the issue if he has a guy hurt. He'll really, start. And I think pound for pound, Rigondeaux probably hits harder than Floyd as well. That left hand that Rigondeaux has is serious. And with Agbeko, he let that left hand go early in the fight. And Agbeko stayed in his place pretty much for the whole fight and covered up. Rigondeaux didn't try and break him down, to be fair. He let Agbeko hang in there with him. But he didn't want to take no chances. Rigondeaux's a very small guy. That's what people need to understand. Very small guy. People talk about Floyd not being the biggest welterweight, or Rigondeaux ain't the biggest, compared to his opponents. He's a very small guy. And, most of his opponents are way bigger than him. And, Rigondeaux walks around at close to his fight weight most of the time. Right? This is not a guy who boils down to make weight. This guy, similar to what Floyd claims, although Floyd's claims could be disputed in terms of his weight, that he actually walks around at. But according to Floyd, he walks around at a similar weight to what he fights at. And it's the same case with Rigondeaux. According to Rigondeaux, he walks around the same kind of weight that he fights at. So, many of his opponents are way bigger than he is, like you saw with Agbeko. Much taller, longer arms, much bigger than he was. But, Rigondeaux, because the opponents are so big, he don't want to take no chances. Stays on the back foot, does his thing, and won the fight easily on the cards. People are saying that this guy ain't going to have a future because he has that particular style. Well, he don't have a future. Well, they say he ain't going to make any money in his career because he has that style. Because he's not knocking people out. Well, Floyd ain't knocking people out, and he's the richest fighter in boxing. It's not necessarily about his style. Well, it is about his style, don't get it twisted, but Floyd showed how, with a boring style, you can still make a lot of money, because Floyd used to run his mouth. Right? He don't really run his mouth these days too much, but, back in the days, not so long ago, Floyd used to run his mouth all the time, and that is what really sold the tickets. Early on in Floyd's career, he couldn't even fill out an arena in his hometown. Right? It's not really until he fought De La Hoya that his career really blew up. Right? So, it's not like Floyd is any more entertaining in the ring than Rigondeaux. He ain't. Yeah? Obviously, to his hardcore fans, and pretty much they're all closet homosexuals, and that's not a disrespect to anyone. That's just telling the truth. A lot of Floyd's hardcore fans. I'm not talking about all Floyd fans, by the way. Right? There's plenty of Floyd fans that are normal human beings, rational human beings. But the hardcore element of the Floyd fans, the ones they call Flomos, these guys are closet homosexuals. And, you know, as far as they're concerned, Floyd is the most entertaining fighter that's ever lived. You know, I mean, like, for example, I can tell you that Rigondeaux is a tremendous fighter, but I can certainly see how people would say that he's boring to watch. Definitely. You know, no question about it. He's never going to win the most entertaining fighter category ever. And that's fair enough. Neither should Floyd. Floyd is not an entertaining fighter in the ring. Right? The stuff he does is not entertaining. It's boring to watch for the majority of fans, and understandably so. But Floyd has made himself marketable by the fact that he did so much trash talk back in the days, to WWE levels of trash talk, and also the fact that Floyd is almost like one of the last of the Mohicans, because the face of professional boxing has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, professional boxing throughout, probably from maybe lightweight all the way up to heavyweight, for the most part, was heavily populated, if not dominated, with African American fighters. There were so many top African American superstar fighters in boxing that there was just so many. If you're an African American person, there was so many fighters for you to look up to and choose to support. Whereas in this particular era right now, there's not many top African American fighters left anymore. And because of that, by default, Floyd Mayweather, since he's the most successful African American fighter in boxing right now, by default, all the African American attention now goes on Floyd, and everyone supports him because he's the top African American fighter. Not necessarily because he's the most entertaining African American fighter there's ever been, or the most likable, no, but because he's one of the few top African American fighters left right now. So everyone gravitates towards him. So he's got an unnatural level of support from the African American community, right, and black people around the world in general. You know, because black people, black fighters don't dominate in boxing the way they used to. You know, back in the 80s and 70s and stuff like that, the black domination of boxing was far more than it is now. And it's almost like Marciano back in the days. You know, when Marciano came along, the amount of white people that supported him was just incredible, because Marciano was around in a time when black people had started to infiltrate boxing and really make serious waves in the boxing world. So when Marciano came along, to them that was the great white hype, and all the white community got behind Marciano. So he enjoyed massive amounts of support because of that. Not because Marciano was particularly, he was an exciting fighter to watch, but he was very crude and whatnot. So, but he got extra praise. There was better fighters than Marciano previously, better white fighters. But Marciano would come around in a time when black Americans were really starting to take over the sport. And Marciano got that amount of support because of the color of his skin. That's a lot of the reason. And it's the same with Floyd. Floyd is, he is a very good fighter, but there have been many good fighters in the past that haven't enjoyed the success, the amount of support that Floyd gets. He's getting the amount of support that he gets, in a lot of the reason is because, like I say, he's African American, and there's not that many top African Americans left in the sport of boxing, at a very high level compared to what they used to be. If you put Floyd back in the 70s or 80s, he would be nowhere near as popular as he is now, because there was plenty of other African American fighters at the top of the sport. So he would be nowhere near as popular, but because of the circumstances today, it is what it is. I know I'm going off on a tangent on Floyd, but it all comes back to the same point, that Rigondeaux's style is not the only reason, that he can't be successful financially or whatever. People are blaming his style, but Floyd has shown that it can be done. Right, it can be done. You can have a boring style but still be successful. So, Rigondeaux don't speak English, but all he needs to learn is just a couple cuss words. In fact, there are other fighters out there who don't even speak English, but they manage to make themselves somewhat marketable. Like, what's his name now? Ricardo Mayorga, right? He never spoke a word of English, but he made himself marketable you know, even to an English audience using his, you know, because of his antics. So, you know, Rigondeaux needs to do something, you know, if he wants to become marketable. The best thing he needs to do, number one thing Rigondeaux definitely needs to do, is he needs to leave Bob Arum as quickly as he can. Because Bob Arum has made it abundantly obvious, abundantly clear, that he is not going to put any kind of effort into marketing Guillermo Rigondeaux. He ain't going to help him out. All right, so I don't know when that contract ends with Bob Arum, but he needs to get the hell out of that contract as quickly as he can and go sign with Golden Boy. You know, that's what he needs to do, because Arum ain't helping him, man. You know, Arum definitely ain't helping him. Go sign with Golden Boy. You get some good fights over there, and you'll get treated better. You know, I mean, you got Oscar De La Hoya over there, and a lot of the Latino fans follow Golden Boy anyway. So I think it'll be a bit more friendly over there for a Spanish speaker like Guillermo Rigondeaux. And, you know, again, like I say, he's never going to be everyone's cup of tea inside the ring. I can definitely appreciate people thinking he's boring to watch. But the guy is tremendously talented and tremendously skilled, and he's making history right now. Guillermo Rigondeaux, in just 13 fights as a professional, I believe he's had 13 fights now. In just 13 fights as a professional, he's a world champion, and he's already beaten a guy who, at the time, was one of the top 5 fighters pound for pound in the sport. I mean, has that ever been done before? Has that ever been done before? Has a guy ever beat a top 5 pound for pound fighter and remained undefeated in 13 fights in a professional, as a professional? Has that ever happened? This guy's making history right now, right? And people want to downplay Nonito Donaire. You can't downplay what Donaire did prior to fighting Rigondeaux. Donaire was like a 2 or 3 weight world champion, tremendous puncher, skillful, good counter puncher, all that kind of stuff. And Rigondeaux ruined him, you know. And Donaire is better than anyone on Floyd's resume, for example. Now, Floyd has definitely got a longer history in the sport of boxing as a professional than Rigondeaux. All right, there's no doubt. We have to see if Rigondeaux can match Floyd's longevity, which is doubtful, because Rigondeaux's already, like, I think 33 years old. So it's doubtful that he can match Floyd's longevity. But certainly in terms of quality of opposition, he's already on the road to surpassing Floyd, because he's already beaten someone in his first 13 fights that is better than anyone Floyd's beat in his 45 fights or whatever he's had. You know, so Rigondeaux is a tremendous talent, man. He's a tremendous talent. And I'm just enjoying watching him fight. And, you know, one of the criticisms that Rigondeaux gets, people who want to criticize the fact that he's achieved so much in 13 fights, and they put it down to the fact that he had such a long amateur career. Well, that's ridiculous. Anyone who says that is just an idiot. You know, they basically want to say, oh, he had so many amateur fights, so that means that his achievements as a professional don't count, because he was pretty much a professional before he turned professional officially. It's completely ridiculous. There's plenty of fighters out there who had loads of amateur fights, you know, hundreds of amateur fights. But they never went on to be successful professionals. All right, it's 2 different games. You know, you have to make a transition. Just because you've had a load of amateur fights, it don't mean you're going to be a good professional. Think about all the other Cubans out there who have had hundreds of amateur fights. Look at Odliner Solis. Look at Yuriorkis Gamboa. You know, many Cuban fighters over the years who have had loads of amateur fights, and they never had the success that Rigondeaux has had so quickly in their careers. You know, 13 fights in, and he's already beat one of the top 5 pound for pound guys, and he was already a world champion with you know, a few defenses under his belt. I mean, this guy's making history right now. Appreciate what he's doing in terms of making history. And I'm not sure you'll ever see this, you know, being done again. This guy is a tremendous talent. Where Rigondeaux goes from here, who knows? But I think it needs to get political before we see any, you know, super fights. Before we see Rigondeaux in any more super fights. Excuse me. I'm still a bit sick over here. But it needs to get political before we see Rigondeaux in any super fights. I think he needs to leave Arum and sort out his promotional situation. But if he can, it's going to be fascinating to see Rigondeaux's career blossom and go on from here, man. because, like I say, man, this guy is making history. So, yeah, drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel. This is Hatman. I'm out.